On December 26, 2023, Isaiah, a middle-aged man, found himself home alone for the evening. His girlfriend, Caroline, had gone out with some friends, leaving Isaiah to take care of the house. Caroline wasn't entirely confident that leaving him in charge was the best decision, as Isaiah had a reputation for being a bit of a child when it came to responsibility. She jokingly admitted that it probably wasn't the smartest choice on her part, but she trusted him to manage. Still, all she could do was hope for the best and pray that he didn't do anything foolish. Little did she know that this night, Isaiah would face something far beyond anything she could have imagined, and he would become the last thing on her mind in the midst of what was about to happen. Just a few hours after she left, something strange unfolded. As Isaiah was walking through the hallway of the house, he entered the guest bedroom, and to his surprise, the door suddenly slammed shut behind him. Before he had time to react, an eerie, loud banging sound echoed from somewhere in the corridor outside the room. A chill ran down his spine, and fear set in almost immediately. He bolted back to his bedroom, locking the door behind him as a precaution, convinced that something, or someone, was out there. Isaiah was left frozen with fear, knowing that whatever had just occurred couldn't easily be explained. The rest of the night passed without any further disturbances, but Isaiah, terrified, refused to call Caroline. He didn't want her to blame him for overreacting, or, worse, chalk it up to him being irresponsible. Instead, he kept the unsettling experience to himself, unsure of what exactly he had just witnessed, but knowing deep down that it was something unexplainable. As the night wore on, he could only wonder if the worst was yet to come. The next story brings us to a Russian household where a family was spending some time together in their living room. The family was enjoying a quiet evening, watching television and discussing which board game they would play afterward. The consensus was charades, but little did they know, they wouldn't even get the chance to get to that point before strange events began unfolding right before their eyes. It started with little things, the kind of small, unexplained occurrences that can be dismissed if one isn't paying attention. However, things escalated quickly when the family realized that the disturbances weren't entirely random. Objects seemed to move on their own, and some items even fell off shelves without any apparent cause. At first, the family was confused, but after a moment of contemplation, they reached a conclusion that chilled them to the core. They believed that the disturbances might be the work of their recently deceased grandmother, who had passed away after a heart attack in the very house they were in. It was only a few days after her passing, and her absence was still felt deeply by everyone in the family. The fact that they were experiencing strange happenings seemed to confirm that her spirit was still lingering in the home. Though they felt a sense of connection to their grandmother's presence, it was hard to deny that the situation was becoming unsettling. The next day, after the family had gathered for the evening, most of the extended family members left to return to their homes, leaving only the 5 permanent residents of the household behind. It was around 3 p.m. when the boys were asked to leave the living room and head to their own room. They had been keeping their grandfather company for hours, and their parents felt it was time for them to have some quiet time. The boys, feeling rebellious and frustrated, retreated to their room, grumbling about the unfairness of their parents' rules. They began bickering and complaining loudly, unaware that their grandmother's spirit was once again listening. This time, she wasn't about to let their disrespect slide.
Бля, короче, ребята, нахуй, вызвали, блядь, демона. Кот, нахуй, под столом, блядь. Творится полная херня. Ёпта, бля.
Вот, блядь, дверь, сука, открылась только что, нахуй.
Бля!
Ёбаный в рот. Ебать, сука.
Нахуй, Герман, блядь, что происходит вообще?
Пиздец, я чё, ебу, что ли? Нахуй, сука.
Ёбаный,
бля. Пиздец, нахуй, сука.
Бля, Герман, нахуй. Бля. Короче, ребята, все, прощаемся, бля, творится полный пиздейшн, нахуй, бежим.
Suddenly, objects started falling from shelves around the room. Books, picture frames, and trinkets all tumbled to the ground in rapid succession. The boys, wide-eyed and in shock, watched helplessly as the room seemed to come alive with activity. Terrified and confused, they started shouting and cursing, calling out the unknown force causing the chaos. They referred to it as a demon, oblivious to the fact that it might very well be their grandmother's spirit trying to make her presence known. With fear setting in, they bolted out of the room and rushed downstairs to their father, telling him what had just happened. Having already experienced something similar the day before, their father believed them without question. The mother, shaken by the boys' fearful expressions, offered to drive the grandfather home, worried that the continued paranormal activity might frighten him further. He gratefully accepted, and they left the house together, leaving the father alone with the two boys. He instructed them to stay in the guest room and avoid the one where the disturbances had occurred. As he began cooking dinner, hoping to have it ready when his wife returned, he thought the night would proceed without further incident. However, the paranormal had other plans.
Сейчас пытаюсь понять, что происходит, но какие-то аномальные явления непонятные, что у меня со стола падает всякая хрень. И вот сейчас на кухне пытаюсь поставить телефон. Оба-на! Заебись! Удачный момент.
Out of nowhere, a glass on the dining table fell to the floor, yet it didn't break or even show any signs of damage. It simply landed upright, as if it had been cushioned by an invisible force. The odds of a glass surviving such a fall without shattering were slim to none, leading everyone to wonder if this was yet another sign of supernatural involvement. Perhaps the ghost had somehow protected the glass from damage. However, whether that's true or just coincidence, we may never know. Since then, no other incidents from this family have been shared publicly, and it's been 6 months since this event. We don't know if they'll post another video anytime soon, but if they do, rest assured I'll be the first to let you know. So make sure to subscribe for future updates. Lastly, we meet Ashraf, a young ghost hunter who was hired by a company to investigate an old, abandoned hospital. The CEO of the company had a strong suspicion that the hospital was haunted, though they didn't know exactly what kind of entity resided there, so they contacted Ashraf's ghost hunting business for a thorough investigation. This was to be Ashraf's first real job as a professional ghost hunter, and while he hoped things would go smoothly, what happened wasn't quite what he had expected.
Escucha. Escucha. ¿Hay alguien?
As Ashraf ventured through the building, he was startled by the sound of a baby crying, echoing through the empty halls. It was an unsettling sound, especially given that he had anticipated hearing more typical paranormal phenomena, such as objects moving or strange noises. The crying, however, was something else entirely. Ashraf quickly recorded the sound and reported it to his boss, but instead of receiving praise, he was reprimanded for not venturing deeper into the hospital to gather more evidence. He received a pay cut, but thankfully, he wasn't fired. However, This experience has led Ashraf to contemplate whether this line of work is truly for him. He hasn't given up entirely, but he is starting to question his future in ghost hunting. Time will tell whether he continues to pursue this career or seeks something else. In the following video, Ali was sitting in the living room, casually watching television, when something truly bizarre caught his attention. It was about 1 p.m, the time of day when typically one wouldn't expect anything out of the ordinary, let alone something paranormal. Yet Ali's afternoon was far from typical.
Здравствуйте, это моя машина. Что хочу про нее рассказать? Опа, что там происходит? Бутылочка упала. Что это такое? Не понял. Что это там? Непонятно. Ого. Непонятно. Что там такое? Ого. Ай-яй-яй.
Out of nowhere, Ali heard the unmistakable sound of objects crashing to the ground. At first, he was confused. There was nothing visibly out of place, and nothing seemed to have fallen. His first instinct was to assume it was his wife upstairs, perhaps moving things around, and since nothing seemed unusual, he decided to ignore the sounds and keep watching his show. In hindsight, this decision was not the wisest. The strange banging noises didn't stop. In fact, they only grew more persistent, but what was most perplexing was that the source of the noise seemed to shift. The bangs that had initially sounded like they were coming from above now seemed to be originating from the same room where Ali was sitting. This was enough to get Ali on his feet, and he decided to investigate. That's when he witnessed something that truly sent a chill down his spine. A shirt, of its own accord, was moving across the floor. Making matters even worse, Ali called out to his wife, asking if she was around and what was happening, but received no response. Eventually, he learned that she was out doing the grocery shopping, meaning there was no rational explanation for what was going on. Something or someone was toying with Ali, but even now, he still has no clue what it was, and it's likely that he never will. While many spirits prefer to remain discreet, keeping their actions subtle and difficult to detect, there are others that are much bolder, as demonstrated in the next clip. Sufyan was working at a factory in the middle of the day, and according to him, this was the most monotonous shift of the entire week. Tuesdays were typically uneventful, consisting mainly of him sitting around and answering the occasional phone call. However, the incident that took place in the following video was far from ordinary, and Sufyan probably would have preferred the dullness of his usual shift. In a moment of pure disbelief, Sufyan watched as a ladder, of all things, began to move across the floor, its 4 legs walking in a motion that looked eerily similar to how a dog walks. This was utterly baffling. How could a piece of heavy equipment move in such a way? But if there's one thing that's been proven time and again on this channel, it's that when paranormal forces are involved, the impossible becomes more than just possible. It becomes a reality. On October 13th, 2019, a couple experienced one of the most bizarre and unnerving phenomena of their lives, an event that would leave them shaken and questioning everything they thought they knew about their home. The incident took place around 9 p.m, and the footage captured by their security camera was nothing short of unsettling. Afterward, the woman explained that she had developed a deep sense of unease and no longer felt comfortable being in the kitchen alone. Now, she always insisted that her partner be there with her. Strangely, he wasn't nearly as disturbed by the events as she was. In the video, the couple watches in horror as their electric whisk turns on by itself, with no human hand anywhere near it. The whisk, which had been old and stiff, required a fair amount of pressure to get it working. In fact, the couple struggled to get it to turn on at times, so for it to turn on its own seemed utterly impossible. But somehow, this seemingly innocent kitchen appliance came to life, and the couple was left trembling, unsure of what to make of the situation. This occurrence wasn't enough to completely deter them from the kitchen, though. What came next, however, would certainly have that effect.
Будешь готовить? Яйца пожарь.
If the previous incident didn't convince the couple that something paranormal was at play, the next one certainly did. Not only did the stove turn on by itself, but a saucepan also moved across the burner, as though an unseen force was actively trying to cook something. The man, attempting to ease the tension of the situation with humor, responded in a rather clever way. He placed some eggs on the stove, almost daring the spirit to cook them for him. To his surprise, the kitchen remained still, as though the ghost had accepted his challenge. It was a strange but humorous moment amidst the tension, and the couple couldn't help but laugh nervously. Vacations are often regarded as the highlight of the year, and for good reason. Traveling to new destinations, experiencing different cultures, and tasting exotic foods all offer an exciting change of pace. However, as great as vacations are, there's one risk that looms over extended breaks: burglary. Thieves are quick to take advantage of homes that are left unguarded while the owners are away, knowing that the chances of getting caught are slim. In the next clip, we meet a middle-aged woman whose best friends, who lived across the street, were about to embark on a trip to Europe. In preparation, they entrusted her with a spare set of keys and asked her to check on their home every few days. They agreed to return the favor when she went abroad. Both parties assumed it would be a simple safety precaution, something that would prevent any unwanted surprises. Unfortunately, their assumption couldn't have been further from the truth.
No, no es normal eso. Ahí paró.
The woman was inside the house when she noticed something out of place. Someone was there. Panicked, she immediately dialed 911 and reported a potential burglary. The police arrived promptly and conducted a thorough search of the house. To their surprise, nothing was missing. There were no signs of a break-in, and the lights hadn't been turned on. The woman was lucky to have recorded the incident on video, or else she could have been charged for filing a false report. After reviewing the footage, the police theorized that the strange occurrence was simply a result of shadows cast by the lights or a malfunction in the LED lighting. However, we all know that what truly happened that night was far from ordinary. In the next video, Egi, a recent university graduate, was at home preparing for a relaxing shower. It had been a long day working his part-time job, and he was looking forward to quitting in a couple of months, so he could travel across Europe with his friends on a gap year. But for the moment, all he wanted was to unwind and clear his mind with a hot shower. However, his plans were interrupted by something unexpected, a spirit that seemed far from pleased with Egi's desire for some peace and quiet. Suddenly, Egi began to hear laughter coming from every room of the house, along with the sound of toilets flushing and objects dropping. The noises seemed to come from every direction, leaving Egi completely disoriented. He initially tried to chalk it up to plumbing issues and called a local plumber to come take a look. Egi was a firm believer in logical explanations and couldn't bring himself to entertain the idea that something paranormal was at play. But he was about to have a change of heart. 2 days later, Egi was sitting down to play the piano, one of his favorite hobbies, when the strange events started up again.
Nggak masuk akal. Ini masih siang, masih jam 1:30.
As he played, a loud bang startled him, and he rushed outside to see if something had fallen or broken. Hoping it was just a minor issue with the house, he was relieved to find that nothing was out of place. But when he returned inside, his relief quickly evaporated. The piano, to his horror, began playing by itself, and as if that weren't terrifying enough, a shirt slid under the door in the most unnatural way. At that point, Edgy could no longer deny that something was very wrong with the house. However, strangely, his love for playing the piano wasn't completely extinguished, and he decided to continue playing, hoping for a better experience the next time. Unfortunately, things only got worse. A chilling cackle echoed through the room, causing Eggy to step back and reconsider everything he thought he knew about his home. He never imagined that his piano, of all things, could be haunted. Despite his fear, he was determined not to let the ghost win. He couldn't bear the thought of selling his piano, the same one he had used since his very first days learning to play. But soon, in a fit of frustration, he decided to go to his home gym and work out some of his anger through boxing.
Keadaan nyala, Cok. Nggak ada orang.
But even there, the spirits seemed to follow him, with the same strange laughter and eerie events unfolding once again. It was becoming increasingly clear to Edgy that the paranormal presence in his life was inescapable. Ultimately, he made a drastic decision that he believed would put an end to the terror. He listed the piano for sale on eBay, and to his relief, it sold quickly. However, there was one crucial detail the buyer overlooked: the spirit that had been attached to the piano.
Ini jam berapa sih? 11. Stop. Jing, dalam keadaan nyala ya. Ya Allah.
In the final footage, A woman who closely resembled Eggy's girlfriend appeared on the screen. She seemed to materialize out of nowhere before vanishing just as quickly. Was this a glitch in the camera? Considering how efficient the camera was, it seems unlikely. The mystery of the spirit remained unresolved, leaving us all with one lingering question. What is the true nature of the force that haunted Eggy?